Hello and welcome to Trucking Office Live. I'm Alan Campbell with Trucking Office, and this is our series about how to run a better trucking business. One of the challenges with running a trucking business is that, we all know how to run the truck or run the business, but doing all the administrative stuff is oftentimes a real pain and a real hassle, and nobody likes to do it. I used to say years ago that, I got into trucking because I didn't want to do accounting. If I wanted to be an accountant, I would have went to college for that. But in this case, I just hated all that part of the job, as doing all the admin stuff. So Trucking Office is a software that will help you do all that all that back end stuff that you don't like doing, and it will automate much of it so that you won't have to think about it or worry about it. It's custom built for truckers like us, makes it easy to enter in the data and keep track of everything you need to track in your business. So if this is your first time seeing us, I'm going to demonstrate and take a look at the software. And what we're doing here is we're just pretending that we're running a mock trucking business. And so we're dispatching 3 trucks every day and showing how that if you just keep the loads entered every day and up to date, then when it comes time to do all the other stuff that needs to be done, it's just a few clicks of buttons and it's real easy. So let me do a share screen and we'll start taking a look. By the way, if you know anybody else who's an owner, operator, or fleet builder and would appreciate this video, then please give me a like on the video so that more people can see it. And if you'd like to see more of our lives, then subscribe to the channel so that you can get alerted when we go live. So the goal here is just to go live every day and quickly go through an update on the business. Okay, so if you're not using our software now, we have a free trial. Go ahead and register for that at truckingoffice.com. And if you are using it, then like I said, this might be some tips on how to keep your things up to date. So what we're looking at here is the main page. This is the trips tab in the top navigation. And what we're looking at are trips that our drivers are on right now. And the ones that are highlighted in yellow are loads that deliver either tomorrow or sometime in the future. Loads that are highlighted in green are loads that deliver today. So it used to be back in the old days, the dispatcher used to have a whiteboard, and up there on the whiteboard he had all the drivers' names or the truck numbers, and then he had days of the week, and then you would fill in what loads everybody was doing, and then when something was done, we'd erase it and update it. Well, this is what used to be the dispatcher's whiteboard. We don't need to do stuff the old school way anymore. I know other dispatchers used to use like ledgers, like on paper and pencil, and just write down what everybody's doing. Yeah, no need to do that anymore. This is now the whiteboard. This is how we look real quick and just see what's going on with the company. Okay, so these loads we entered in over the past several days, and then this is what's going on for today. So we're looking. First thing we're doing is we're looking at what's highlighted in green, and we're seeing that Bill Smith had a load that delivered today in Chicago. And we have Bill Smith doing a dedicated run from Akron, Ohio to Chicago, and then Chicago back to Akron. So he's on a dedicated thing. Now what I did is I just clicked on Smith because that's who we're looking at. And when I clicked on his name, it's sorted and just shows me just his loads without anybody else's. So I can just see kind of just what he's doing. So you can see he does Chicago to Akron, Akron to Chicago. That's all he's doing. He's on a dedicated run. Okay. So first thing we're going to look at is he delivered this load today. And so next thing you want to do is invoice it. You want to get paid as soon as possible. So we're going to say he's already turned in his bill of lading, and I've already scanned in the load tender or the rate con, whatever you have for this load. Okay. Now I clicked on view. All we're doing now is viewing his trip information. This is our chance to make edits if we need to. We can check everything out, make sure everything's up to date, make sure everything's accurate, everything looks good. Then we're ready to invoice it, because after things are delivered, you want to get paid right away, right? So first thing we'll do is we'll create an invoice for this load. Now all I did is viewed that load information and clicked a button that said create invoice, and then that pre-filled everything for me. Pre-filled my invoice number, my date. If you need to put in a remit to, if you're doing factoring or whatever, now's your chance to do that right here. If you need to make a note about this invoice, this is an internal note. This is a recent thing that we added. Some customers asked for that, so we put that in. Okay, and we're just invoicing this one load. There are 2 loads available for this customer, but we're only doing this one. Okay, and then all you have to do is click on create the invoice, and it's done. All right, and then we're back to the load, or oh no, this is the invoice view. And right here, we're at the invoice stage of this. And so this one's invoiced. That's all the invoice information. We have two different PDF types, a detailed one and a basic one. So you can save that, email that, print that, whatever you want to do. Or if you're going to send it via email, we just have a shortcut button right here. And the email address is already filled in, in your address book. So it'll already pre-fill that because we know who the customer is. Invoice number, we can attach files if you need to attach that rate con or the bill of lading. Now's your chance to do that. And then you can even type in a message and then fire it off and it's on its way. Just that easy. So we've logged in, we checked on our driver, we did an invoice. Today is November 10th, Wednesday the 10th. No, today's Tuesday, isn't it? Today's Tuesday the 10th. All right. So we got that invoice done, and so we'll move on. Let's go back to trips. Now, when he's done with that, the next thing we have to do is, okay, he delivered, we made the invoice, but the other thing we have to do is, what's he doing after that? Well, let's go over here to the loads view, and I'll show you. Because he's on a dedicated run, if we just click on his name and sort by the driver, now you can do that. Anything that's clickable, you can sort by. You can sort by the truck, you can sort by the customer. Anywhere in the app that you see these hot links, those are sortable real easy. So right now I'm just sorting by the driver. And like I said, he's on this dedicated lane. So today he delivered in Chicago, so now he's going to do a Chicago back to Akron. So what then we're going to do is clone this load. And what that'll do is just make a copy of all this load information and create a new one. So the customer is going to be the same, the shipper is going to be the same, the constant anywhere it delivers to is going to be the same, but the dates are going to be different, right? So instead of picking up the other day, he's going to pick up today on the 10th instead of the 5th, was last week. He's going to pick up today. Driver instructions, appointment at 2. It's a dedicated run, so the appointment's probably always at 2. Maybe there's a different bill of lading number. We'll update that. He's going to deliver this tomorrow. This is an overnight trip or a one-day trip. First come, first serve at the place in Akron. So that's all set. The rate is on a contract, so it's the same. It just copied all the information, so it's all pre-filled. So we're just going to save it. It's easy. Okay. Now what that did is just created a planned load. And so what that does is it doesn't do any calculations or update any reports or do anything at this point. All it does is saves the information we entered. Okay. So what we need to do is move this on to the trip stage. And what we're doing there is dispatching this load by assigning it to the driver and the truck. And then the system will update. So when I'm here and I'm looking at this load, I'm going to view it. And when I'm viewing this button, then when I hit add trip, it knows that's the load I'm adding the trip to. Knows I'm adding this particular load to this trip. It's already pre-checked. Let's go back up here to the top, and all we're doing is going to assign it to a driver that's already in the system. So Bill Smith. If you're brand new to the software and you don't have any drivers in the system, just create your driver right there. Okay. Now the system already knows that on the last trip he was driving truck number 2. If you don't have any trucks in the system, just create one right from this form. Makes it easy. Trailers, I don't have them assigned to a trailer right now. Trailers are optional on our system. We can say he's got truck 2, so we'll say he has trailer 2. Now we know that the last load he delivered was in Chicago. That's important because it's going to pick up his empty miles, from the last load to this load and the loaded miles. You don't have to do anything extra for that. The system is just doing that for you. Some people think they have to put like an extra empty move in between the trips and stuff. You don't. The system automatically picks all that up. Now this is an area where you can enter expenses, but we're not entering expenses right now, so we're just going to save the trip. Okay, so that's saved. Now you're done with the planned load. It's assigned to a trip, successfully created. That updates all your load information, all your revenues. It updates your reports. This updated on 13 different management reports. Driver settlement is right here. This is what this load's going to pay this driver. It creates a profit and loss. The profit and loss for this load, including mileage stats like revenue per mile. It also updated the reports that has all that information. This is all your invoicing information. So when you're ready to create the invoice, there's your invoice button. It ran the miles. It ran the miles by state, and those miles by state come from PC Miler. So PC Miler, practical miles, truck routing. This is not shortest distance or anything like that. This is IFTA approved practical mileage routing. And then we do that on every load and break it down by state and update all your reports accordingly. IFTA reports, IRP reports, we can look that up a number of different ways. So then at the bottom is just your route, so these are the points on the route. Previous load we delivered at, then pickup and delivery for this load. Okay, and the other thing that happens when this is assigned to the trip is that this load information is automatically sent to this driver's ELD app. So Bill Smith will now be able to see his load information, not the invoice information, but just the load information, pickup address, delivery address, appointment times, bill lading numbers, all that kind of stuff that he's going to need out there in the field. It automatically goes to him. You don't have to click any extra buttons or do anything extra. That's just what just shows up in his app. Then when he's doing the load and he's looking at that load information and he's done picking up, he can check a box and mark that thing loaded. That'll update the system here, the load status. If you look over here at load status, you'll be able to see that it's dispatched as soon as you do it. It's dispatched. Then when he shows picked up, it'll show in transit. When it's delivered, he can mark off delivered, and then when it's finally done, we'll be ready to invoice it. Okay. So for today, that's it. The Bill Smith delivered today. We got him on a dedicated run, so we cloned that load. He's all set. So the two goals for every day are, one is to make sure you have all of your drivers in the yellow zone, because that means they've all picked up freight and they're going to be delivering it sometime in the future. Unless, of course, somebody's taking time off or whatever. But when guys are on the road and we're trying to keep everybody busy, the goal is to keep everybody dispatched, have everybody dispatched in a system so you know what's going on. And the other goal is when you go over here to, when you're here at loads where we just were, you want to make sure everything that's done down here, the green lines and below the green lines, you want to make sure everything is invoiced, right? Because you want to make sure you're keeping your stuff invoiced right away. See, if I scroll way down and I see some old loads that never got invoiced, then that's a trigger to say, hey, that's going to delay getting paid for those loads. We need to figure that thing out and get that sorted out so we can get those invoiced. Okay, so it's just a real easy check. So we're going to make sure that everybody's on a load to delivers in the future. We're going to make sure everything that's done is invoiced right away so we can get paid sooner rather than later, right? It's like everybody wants their freight there right on time, but they can pay whenever they feel like it sometimes, so you don't want them to have any excuse to not pay as soon as possible. So you want to get that invoice fired right off, okay? So now what I'm going to do is go back here to trips. And the last couple of days, we haven't done much with expenses. So let's practice entering a few expenses. So let's say we're doing this load. John Doe is doing this trip from Cleveland, Ohio to Miami, Florida. So let's view that trip. And then we're going to scroll right down to the bottom. Actually, what we need to do is click on the edit button. We're going to do edit trip right there. Then this is the form we did when we created the trip. And now we're going to scroll down to the bottom. And we'll add a fuel expense. That just opened up this form right here. And then we'll say that today on the 10th, he's going to buy fuel. We'll say he bought $700 worth of fuel. Whoops, not 7,000. We'll say 700. And then gallons, we'll say he got about 300 gallons. Odometer, you can fill in your odometer. Okay, and then the fuel vendor is just where did we buy the fuel, right? So looks like I don't have a pilot in there. So I'm going to create a vendor. The vendor's name is, I'm going to say, a pilot. And then we'll say that's in, let's see, where would we buy fuel? We can buy fuel, I'm just going to say in Youngstown, Ohio. Now somebody might be saying the pilot in Youngstown is not really in Youngstown, but maybe it's there in Girard, but I'm just making stuff up, so it's okay for now. All right, so now we have the expense on the 10th. We have the amount of 700 gallons, odometer, and then we were creating a fuel vendor. So now it filled it in, Pilot and Youngstown, okay? And then we also have to declare the state. This is just for IFTA purposes. And I know you already say this is Ohio, but we just need to clarify that this is where you're actually buying the fuel. You might have just put in Pilot generically, but you might be buying the fuel in West Virginia, for example. And if that's what you're doing, then you can just totally do that. Come down here and pick West Virginia if you can find it. There we go. I'm clicking around too fast. West Virginia. We'll say we bought this fuel in West Virginia. Okay. And then when we save the trip, that will update on the trip. Okay. So then we save. And what we're looking for is this right here on the profit and loss area. It's going to register under expenses. This is the fuel expense, $700. We just added that right there. Now, if we have the receipt, we can attach the receipt, but we can enter it right there. Also, drivers with the mobile app, with the ELD app, can also enter this fuel expense right from their ELD app. So if you wanted your drivers to do that, they can do that right from the app. When they pump fuel, they can enter it. Let's see. So that updates there. Let's also go over to our expense list and see it on our expense list. Okay. Over here on November 10th, we have fuel. It was on trip number 1042, and for truck number 3, $700. So there's our list. We had someone ask, at different times we've had people ask, maybe these things should be color coded so you can tell, geez, you get insurance and fuel and tolls and all these things. You might have truck payments and on and on. You have all these different types of expenses. Just remember that you can always sort. Anytime there's a link here, you can sort. So if you just want to see the insurance category, there you go. Click on that. It's just that easy. You want to see just this truck, you can just click on just this truck. Here's the expenses just for that truck. You want to see, something else, you can click on whatever there is to click on there. You can do that, and it'll just sort real easy. Okay. And then another thing that we don't look at very much is maintenance, in our demos. But when you enter in maintenance, that's really a part of expenses. So don't ever think that, you need to, if you enter into maintenance, you also need to put it on expenses. So it's in both places. No, maintenance is really a subcategory of expenses. But since maintenance is such a big part of what we do, we've made it separate. And then we have some additional features around maintenance, like, you have maintenance plans that you can program in there and different things. And so maybe we'll cover that on one of these sessions. But for today, we're just going to put in a maintenance entry just so you can see what it looks like. Okay, so on the units, we'll say, so what are we doing? We're just putting in a fuel expense for truck 2. Now let's put in a maintenance expense. And then they're going to say, well, what did you have done? We'll say we did an oil change / brake inspection. Okay. And then the maintenance vendor, where did we get that done at? Let's say we got done at the Petro truck stop. That's probably not in our system, so I'll need to enter it. So we'll create that. We'll say Petro. Oops, typed it wrong. Petro. And we'll say in Youngstown. I don't know why I'm picking on Youngstown so much, but we'll pick it anyway. And then Youngstown, Ohio. And then you can fill in phone numbers and save all that information, but really all the system needs on any of these addresses is a name, a city, and state. Okay, but you totally can put in all the phone numbers and addresses, notes about them, put in your favorite ones or whatever, and then save that. When you save that, it'll fill it in right here. We have the information we already entered. We just made a new vendor. And then keep in mind, every time you click on one of these create buttons, it's really adding to your address book. So this will be in there now for next time if you ever go back there again. So how much does an oil change and brake inspection cost? I don't know. Let's say $300. Time they change the oil and do a little bit of labor. Then we'll say that happened today. And then you can fill in the odometer or you can just leave it blank. Since I'm making up stuff, I'm just going to leave it blank. And then we'll save. Okay, maintenance log successfully created, and there's all your details. So then if you go to the list, then we'll see that on November 10th, we see the oil change for truck 2. We left the odometer blank, but there's where it is, and there's the amount of money. And the vendor was for this vendor. Now, see, a vendor is another thing you can sort by. You can sort maintenance by truck, you can sort maintenance by vendor, and you can see all your history. Okay. I used to hate it when a starter would go out. I had multiple trucks, and every time a starter went out, it seems like, man, we just put a starter on that truck. And I would have to go dig through all kinds of records and try to figure out where the receipt was, and spend all this time trying to track down that receipt from 6 months ago, only to find out, no, we put a starter on the other truck. This truck, hasn't had a starter for a while. So, that's the way it goes. If you have a nice system like this, keeping track of it, you just go click on that stuff and you see it right away. Like, you can even do search over here. If you did a search for tires, for example, you can see all the tires. If you did a search for starters, you would see all the starters. So a lot of different ways to look up your history. So that's part of the reason that it's so handy to use this system to keep track of your business. So that's it. That's all we need to do for today. We've updated our invoices. We've got all our trucks are all dispatched on loads. We have all our invoicing up to date. And so we're good. Let's go look at the report real quick. Company overview report. Okay. That's the one we look at every day, because our revenues and everything get adjusted. These charts are showing what your profits and expenses are. Now, I just have a little bit of data in here, so it doesn't look very good. But once you do this month over month, it starts to show some ups and downs of your business, okay? And the one on the right is tracking profit per mile, or excuse me, just per mile overview. So this has profit per mile and expenses per mile. So this is not revenue per mile. Really, what you're trying to make is profits, right? So the revenue per mile is very important when you're out there bidding freight, but what you're really going after is profit per mile. So you can make a higher profit per mile by doing one of two things. You can either get more revenue per mile, or you can do less expenses per mile, and either one will drive that profit number up. The real goal of the business is to increase the profits. So sometimes you can have real high revenue per mile, but your amount of miles you're running is too low. And so because of that, your expenses are too high. So your expenses per mile are going to be high because you have high expenses, but you're not driving enough miles to reduce the expense per mile. So anyway, studying these numbers and understanding how these numbers fluctuate is an important part of the business, and will, a lot of times can make or break you, especially when times are tough. When times are good and rates are real high and everybody's making money, then it's fine. But when rates get tough and times get slow and you still got bills to pay and still got to make the house payment and all that kind of stuff, you either have to have some money saved up, or you really have to know what your numbers are, and you really have to know when to park it and when to run it. So in this report, when you run this report, it's going to show revenue, expenses, and profits, standard profit and loss type stuff, easy. And it's also going to give you some trucker stats, though. How many loads do we do for the week? How many miles are we running? Miles per load. That goes back to that thing like, are we running enough miles? Revenue per mile, expenses per mile, profit per mile, breaks it down per loaded mile. I know that all miles count, but when you're bidding on freight, they don't care how many miles you go empty to their load. Like they only care about the loaded miles, point A to point B. So it's important to understand how those numbers fluctuate. If you're running a lot of empty miles, then that'll affect your revenue per loaded mile, right? So all of these things depend on one another, and when you are real good in one stat, sometimes not good in another stat, you need to understand how that all affects your business. Okay, so this is a really handy report to break that down for you. All right, and then after that, there's 13 other reports here you can look at. You need to make driver settlements. They're a couple clicks. They're easy. You can break down expenses. IRP when it's time for plates, a couple clicks, real easy. Quarterly IFTA, of course. We can do the tax calculations. We can run the miles and gallons real easy. How many miles per gallon you're getting on your trucks, just all different things in these reports. So spend some time playing around with that. And I think we're going to wrap it up for the day. If you are if you're not using our software, I really just encourage you to get the free trial of the software. It's a real easy free trial. This is not one of those things where there's a surprise credit card form or anything like that. You're just going to fill this form out, get on the free trial. It's truly a try it before you buy it situation. We'd like to have the chance to earn your business before we ask for any payments. When you get on the free trial, we're going to send you some emails. I'll email you some things about the 4 pillars of trucking management, where I talk a little bit about, why we built certain things the way we did, why it's important, and maybe tell some of the stories from my trucking business from back in the old days. So get on the free trial and give it a try. And we'll reach out to you. We'll send you some training videos. We'll be here for support. I'm doing this YouTube live every day, so subscribe to the channel and check in with us. If you're already on the free trial, you have some questions, maybe you're trying some things out, you're not quite sure how to do specific things. I know there's a lot of different operations out there and different ways to do things, so we get specific questions a lot in support or whatever. If you have those kind of questions, go ahead and throw them in the comments here, or reach out to us in a support chat or support email is the best way to go. We do some phone support Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, but that just gets really busy and overloaded. So best way to get through is with the email or a chat. But if you're on the software, I would really encourage you to, if you're on the free trial, excuse me, is what I meant to say. If you're on the free trial, I really encourage you to actually enter in some of your own loads so that you can look at some of your own reports and see how you're doing. And that will really tell you if this is a good fit for your business. Entering that first load or two takes a few minutes, but as you can see, once you're using the software a little bit, you can really click through this thing pretty quick. It only takes a little while every day to keep everything up to speed on your business, and everything else is really automated. It just becomes really easy. Just put your load information in there every day, and everything else is simple. So, all right, well, we're going to wrap it up for today. I appreciate you tuning in. Subscribe to the channel, please. Give me some likes on the videos. If you have questions, put them in the comments. Tag somebody else who's an owner operator or a fleet builder that could use the software. They would appreciate the recommendation. I believe that. So with that, I'm going to sign off, and we'll check back in tomorrow. Have a good day. See you later.